Hello, my friend, and welcome to this edition of Fresh Hope for Mental Health. I'm Brad Hoefs, your host. Our purpose here on Fresh Hope for Mental Health is to empower you to live a faith-filled, rich, and full life in spite of having a mental health diagnosis. I'm thrilled to have with me today, not in the studio, but on the phone, a new friend of mine, and his name is Keith ONeil. You might have heard of him. He's been a linebacker in the NFL, and in fact, he earned a Super Bowl ring when the Indiana Colts beat the Chicago Bears in the 41st Super Bowl on my birthday in 2007, which was on February 4th. So, Neil, thank you Keith, thank you for joining me. You're such a new friend. I don't know your first name. Keith, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Pastor Brad, for having me on the show. I'm calling from cold Buffalo, New York.
Yeah, and I'm here in Omaha, and you've got rain, and we've got a blizzard going on. But by the wonderful creation of phones and all kinds of other stuff, here we are. So, well, first of all, tell me just a little bit about your career. Tell me about, gosh, I'm talking to somebody who's got a Super Bowl ring. Now, for many of my friends, this would be a huge deal. For me, I had to make sure I knew that what position you played, and I had to look up the Roman numerals for the Super Bowl that you won.
So, who can count those things anyways?
Oh, yeah, it does make sense. Just put 41st Super Bowl.
Right.
Yeah, tell me about your career and how you started. And
Sure. It dates back actually to the day I was born. My father was a football player. He played 7 years in the NFL, and my mother gave birth to me the day that he was cut from the New England Patriots. Yes. So it was in my blood and destined to be for me. I played youth sports growing up, and played high school football and got recruited to go play football at Northern Arizona University on a athletic scholarship. And I played well there, and I got picked up by the Dallas Cowboys as an undrafted free agent in 2003, and played 5 years in the NFL. 2 for the Cowboys and 3 for the Colts and a little bit for the Giants, and earned a Super Bowl ring, like you said, in Super Bowl 41.
Yeah. And you guys, that wasn't a real close game. You did very well in that game.
Yeah, it was, believe it or not, it was actually the last game I ever played in. For many reasons, one being my mental health, but I walked away the game with a Super Bowl ring and a smile on my face.
Yeah. Did you go to Disneyland or Disney World?
Only the MVP gets to go there. And Peyton Manning was the MVP. So.
Okay. All right. Well, that's okay, I guess. Seems like a nice guy.
Oh, he is. He's tremendous.
Good. Well, and you, if I'm not mistaken, you married your high school sweetheart. Is that correct?
No, actually, we met in college at Northern Arizona.
Okay.
And that was about 17 years ago.
Oh.
And we've been married for 11 years. We have 2 beautiful little boys. One's 5, one's 2, and
oh boy,
they keep us busy.
Oh yeah, 5 and 2. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah,
that's something. Yeah, I just didn't really like looking at the year you were born and thinking, oh, I had already been married a year. I'm old enough to be your dad. Well, we'll move on from there now. So you guys live in Buffalo, and what do you do these days? How do you keep yourself busy? Does your wife have a career also, or?
Well, I'll start with my wife. She's a registered nurse. She works at a surgery center. She's great at what she does. She's bright, intelligent, graduated top of her class. I try and stay busy. I do a lot of different things. I'm an author.
Yes.
I wrote the book Under My Helmet, a football player's lifelong battle with bipolar disorder, back in August. It was published.
Yes.
I run a foundation. I'm a president and founder of a foundation called Fourth and Forever, which raises mental health awareness and also funds research. So between those 2 things, I'm also a public speaker, working at public speaker. And so I stay busy. I go all around the country, sell my books, speak about mental health, my story, and trying to encourage and lift up people through my experiences.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and congratulations on the book. And
Thank you.
I haven't been able to snag a copy yet. I need to get mine ordered and read it before we have you come and public speak in Omaha, right? In April.
I'm excited.
Yeah, well, we're excited to have you. We've had Kay Warren the first year, and then we had Sheila Walsh. And so those of you who are listening who might want to come, Keith will be with us on Thursday night, April 19th, here in Omaha at our 3rd annual Night of Inspiring Hope. And we decided it was important to have a man speak, and all the better that we could have an athlete speak, because mental health is an issue for men also, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and many times we just don't think of men being willing to share their story. So I'm so glad you're willing to talk about it and share with us about it. And I'm praying that book just gets into the hands of a lot of people, but especially men that follow the sports, and so that they too can live a full and rich life in spite of whatever it is that they might struggle with. So tell me about how this started. You've been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, as have I. Tell me about how it showed up. Tell me how you found out.
Well, I can go way back to when I was a little kid, and I experienced a lot of anxiety, depression, and insomnia as far back as almost I can remember. And I showed through the insomnia because I was so anxious to go to sleep at night that I couldn't sleep. And that was probably like my first, I guess, symptoms of bipolar disorder. No one knew what it was, but I would be up all night because my mind would just race.
Mm-hmm.
And then throughout my life, I never really had any like huge manic episodes. I was just always kind of moody. I had a nickname the Bear because of my personality.
Oh,
that's what everyone used to call me because, like a bear, where we hibernate or angry or mad or happy and sad and between. So my moods always fluctuated. But then I went into the NFL and struggled a lot in the NFL with insomnia and anxiety and depression.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a struggle. It was definitely a fight. And when I later retired because I didn't know what was going on. I had enough of it after 6 years. And
sure,
I finally got diagnosed at 30. My wife and I, we got pregnant with our first child, and she miscarried. And something just went off in my brain. And I went into a severe manic episode that ended in psychosis. And that's when, at the age of 30, I was finally diagnosed with bipolar 1 disorder.
Yeah. Boy, that's, it had to be painful.
Yeah, it was tough, but a lot of questions were answered once I was diagnosed. And once I got on the proper medication and started living a healthy life with my faith and my exercising and taking my meds. And it takes a lot of different factors to be able to live a functioning, productive life when you have bipolar disorder.
Yes.
It's not just take meds and you're fixed. I mean, you have to...
Yeah, you mean they're not magic bullets. That's what I found out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that go into it, and faith played a huge role.
Yeah, talk to me about that. Tell me about faith and how it has helped in your recovery, and what role has it played and how?
Well, I was raised in a Catholic family, Mass every Sunday. So at an early age, I was introduced to religion and Jesus and God. And, we prayed together as a family. So I had that foundation. But I left the Catholic Church a little bit ago, and now I'm a non-denominational. Like, it doesn't really matter. But, when I was at my sickest moments and laying in bed, I went 5 nights during training camp, rookie training camp with the Dallas Cowboys without sleeping, 5 nights in a row.
Wow.
And I was in a bad place, suicidal thoughts, and only person I could lean on was Jesus.
Yeah.
And he was the only one there for me, because when you're going through such a terrible time like that, he's there for you, and he was there for me. And I would lay at night and pray, and But it goes back to when I was even a little kid. Like, my parents saw that I was struggling, so my father, he actually gave me a little pocket Bible, and I put it in my pillowcase to sleep at night. Because we just knew that I needed help. And
sure.
Sometimes I got frustrated because I felt like my prayers weren't getting answered. But today, as I look back, they have been. I'm healthy. Yeah. I'm spreading the word. I have purpose. I have a beautiful family. Yeah. I'm strong in my faith, and things are well now.
Yeah, and for those of you who are listening and saying, "Oh gosh, I just got diagnosed," or "I'm struggling," hear what Keith's saying. He's really saying that there's a way through this. There's a way to get to a point where you can live well, and that you can have purpose and you can have meaning in your life, and it doesn't have to be all about the illness that you have, whether it's bipolar or depression or anxiety or all those things, or personality disorder or schizophrenia. There is hope. There's always hope. Now, Keith, tell me just a little bit about your foundation. Tell me then, once you were diagnosed and you started to feel called to help other people, obviously, yes, through your foundation. So tell us a little bit about your work there.
Sure. About 4 years after I was diagnosed, I started. It took a while to get back on track. That manic episode really threw me for a loop, to say the least. And probably about 4 years after I was diagnosed, I decided my calling was to help other people with mental illness. And so I decided to start a foundation that raises awareness and funds research for mental illness. It's called Fourth and Forever. And I go around, I speak. I speak at schools, high schools mostly, mental health organizations, and everything, all the fees I charge, I guess you could say, go towards my foundation, and we end up funding research.
Yeah. So what kind of research has your foundation been funding? Can you tell us a little bit about that? Or
Sure. The first gift we gave was to the University at Buffalo, and that's where I give the most to, because when I was very sick, that's where I went. Finally, after a suicide attempt, my family stepped in and got me the help I needed, and they introduced me to Dr. Stephen Dubofsky at the University of Buffalo, who is the chair and professor of psychiatry there. And they really helped me get on the right meds, find the right psychiatrists, find the right therapists. So not that I felt like I owed them anything, but I wanted to give back.
Yes.
And once I started raising enough money, I gave some of it back to UB to fund research for bipolar disorder. And what they told me was they're trying to look for the gene that creates bipolar disorder in people.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to do.
Well, praise God. That's a very worthy cause, because I have a feeling someday, it may not be for us, but someday there will be all kinds of things that they can do for bipolar disorder and other disorders, because they will have done this research. So that's good. You mentioned early on here, just a few minutes ago, that it's a combination of things that brought you to the point of living well. Can you talk to me about what some of those combinations are? Because I really think that there is a mindset or kind of a learned helplessness that happens out there when we go to the doctor, we go to the therapist, they give us money or medicine, they tell us that we have this, that we're going to have to learn how to live with it, but we don't really. So often people don't grab a hold of their recovery and flip that coin over and say, okay, now how do I live with this? And so, there are no magic bullets in the pills. They never changed my thinking. I had to do that myself.
Absolutely.
They didn't change my behaviors. I had to do that myself. So talk to me about those combinations. And
one thing I learned is you have to give it time. Yep. It's not going to happen overnight. And I learned that. I've been diagnosed for 7 years, maybe almost 8, and the first 4 years were not good.
Mm-hmm.
But then slowly, I just relied on time. And like you said, I built a team around me. I have a
Mm-hmm.
therapist. I have a church. I have a psychiatrist. I have a supportive family. I'm in sobriety now.
Mm-hmm.
I exercise, which is probably one of the number one things that helps me in my recovery, is to stay active and burn, let those endorphins release,
Mm-hmm.
That's very crucial for
Yep.
me. Everybody's different now,
Yeah.
what works for me might not work for somebody else,
Right.
but it works. This is what works for me.
Right. But it's not just one thing. It's usually a number of things for us
Right.
in
Mm-hmm.
recovery. And I believe that there are certain principles that are universal to mental health recovery. For instance, I think you've got to change your thinking. You got to change how you think. Like Paul talks about in the New Testament, taking captive your thinking, because depression, for instance, for me, just was the most oppressive kind of thinking. It just was horrible thinking, dark thinking. And it not only did my mood lift, but I had to really then get out of those bad habits of that kind of stinking thinking.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to do.
Yes, it is.
It's very hard to do. It's, people say people might just say, hey, snap out of it, or it's hard. But with like we said, the combination of different factors and whatnot, you can build a strategy, with help from others and everything.
Yep. And don't you think too, the more you know about your own diagnosis, that helps also, because you start to recognize, oh, that's kind of, that anger piece is part of the bipolar disorder. Oh, okay, maybe I need to put that in my toolbox also.
Absolutely. You have to be self-aware. You have to.
Yes. And that's especially
really
difficult for us guys, I think.
Yeah.
Probably problems for everybody, but it's hard to be self-aware.
It's hard. You have to live in the present. You have to be mindful. You can't worry about the past or the future too much. You have to live one day at a time, and you have to be, like I said, self-aware.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And what I've been working on lately, we've developed a program for men right now in jail, and it's Fresh Hope for Living Free. And we've been doing it locally as a pilot program. And you go to the jail, and 90% of the guys are in jail because of a mental health diagnosis. They've got a mental health issue.
Right.
And minimally, they've got heavy emotional issues that have never been worked through. But what we're finding is a lot of people have trauma, unresolved trauma, that has either triggered or caused the mental illness or the brain chemistry issues. There's so many things that people don't realize, that if you don't work through them, if you don't learn how to be mindful, you don't learn how to be in the present, then all of a sudden pain becomes this wad of something that causes a lot of issues in our lives. And especially, I always think for men, I watch the guys in jail, I think the courage that it takes them to deal with, yes, they have hurts and pains, and yes, they have feelings and emotions that need to be dealt with. I'm amazed, though, what happens when we do deal with our feelings and our emotions and learn how to be more present, be more mindful, and all that kind of stuff. It's amazing.
It is.
And how God is. You can own it. Pardon?
You can own it. You can own yourself. You can own your diagnosis. And my wife and I were just talking the other day, and she gave me a great compliment. And she said that to me. She's like, Keith, I'm very proud of you. It seems like, we're finally on the right path, and you own your illness.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought about it like that. I understand it.
Yep.
I know when I'm hypomanic. I know when I'm depressed. Being depressed is easy to recognize. Being hypomanic isn't, because it's nice. It's fun.
Oh, yeah. It's a lot more fun.
You get things done.
Yep.
You get things done. You set goals. You do everything, and that's harder to recognize. But that's probably my biggest step lately, is recognizing when I'm hypomania, and settling down and concentrate on my breathing and prayer and reading and all those things help.
Absolutely. I could tell you that let's see, 7 years into my diagnosis, after being diagnosed, I relapsed. But for the last 14 to 15 years, I have lived with no episodes, no struggles. And it is so incorporated into my being that I have bipolar disorder. I have to be, I have to do a bunch of preventative things that this new way of living has become habit. And when we are proactive about much of this, unless our brain just goes wackadoo on us, short of that, there does come a steadiness to it, and it does smooth out. The path does smooth out. But so many folks I know that relapse and struggle so much, it's, they didn't take their medicine, or they refuse to be mindful of the fact that they're getting a little hypomanic and doing what they need to do to tweak, their behavior. I sometimes want to just say to folks, there's hope, but you have to do what you've got to do in order to live well. And there's a lot you can do about it,
Yeah.
Finding that path, finding that way forward. And it really does make a big difference. It's not that I have not hit speed bumps. I haven't fallen off the road, though. No major episodes or anything. Well, tell me just a little bit more about the book. I keep wanting to say under the hood, but under the helmet.
Under my helmet.
Under my helmet. Okay.
Sure. I probably like a year or two after I started speaking and started my foundation, people started approaching me about, have I ever written a book before? And I told them it's never even really crossed my mind. And then the more people asked me, the more I started thinking about it. So the process was grueling.
Oh, yes.
Definitely. I mean, it wasn't as hard as the NFL for me, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops. You have to put in your time, and trying to get it published, and putting all your thoughts and memories and feelings and heart and soul and tears all into a book. I can remember some nights while I'm up writing, just all of a sudden I would just start crying, bringing back memories. And then sometimes I would laugh 5 minutes later about it.
Yep.
But the book is a memoir. It's about my life, dealing with bipolar disorder and being a professional athlete and being part of a football family. My father was a coach. My brother played football. My brother-in-law played in the NFL too. And so it's kind of a combination of what it's like to play in the NFL and the struggles about that, on top of, mental health problems. So it's a good combination. And I talk about my faith in there a little bit, and scriptures that I really leaned on and got me through some really, really dark times in my life. And it's a good read. It's an easy read. A lot of people will contact me on social media and say, hey, I read it in a day. I read it in 2 days. And that was my goal, to be an easy read, inspire others. Not only, you don't have to have a mental illness to read this book.
Right.
It's about, overcoming adversity. It's about setbacks. It's about triumph. It's about redemption. It's about, giving up. It's about never giving up. It's about, mental health. It's about the Super Bowl and the NFL and the glamour and all that stuff. So
yeah,
it's an interesting read. And I think a lot of people that have read it so far have really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like it, and I definitely will have read it by the time you're here, because I'm really looking forward to getting to know you better, and because I really believe that guys speaking out about their mental health issues is key to helping other men. Not that we can't help women also, but sometimes I think we men need to be speaking out even more and saying, no, I have this, or I've suffered with this. And, I think just recently there was a quarterback that committed suicide this last week. And I know that I read about it and I thought, oh gosh, this young man had this probably anxiety or depression or who knows. Mm-hmm. And it just pains me because I think there's a lot of people living in a hell that they don't need to be living in. But we all kind of have to find our journey through this also. But the more that we tell, the more we talk about it, the more people hear. And I like that you said you don't have to have a mental illness to read the book, because that's exactly the truth. There's still a lot to learn because it's how God redeems our lives. It's how he redeems our pain. He's in the process of redeeming all your pain. Mm-hmm. So anyway, let's do this. I'd like you to just speak for a few minutes to somebody who's newly diagnosed and just speak some words of encouragement to them, if you would.
Sure. First of all, I'd like to start off by saying if you're just newly diagnosed, that it's not going to be easy. As far as personal experience, everybody's different, But for me, it wasn't easy. First of all, telling people was almost just as hard as the illness itself. The shame and secrecy that you might be living with might be just as hard as the actual illness. So it's going to be hard. But don't ever give up hope. There's so many people out there who are willing to help you. Pastors, coaches, teachers, friends, parents, grandparents, spouses. They might not understand it fully, but share it with them. Talk about it. Let it out. Don't keep it all crammed in, because that's going to make it even worse. It did for me. Mm-hmm. Medication does work. You might have to go through a bunch to find the right combination that works for you. But after 7 years, I think I'm definitely on the right medication now. Just don't give up hope. Like I said, and it's a battle, but it'll make you stronger. Adversity makes us all stronger. Yes,
yeah, for sure. God takes that pain and difficulties that we've been through, and he holds on to us through Romans 8:28 by saying, I'm going to take all of this and make it work for your good. And then he allows us to minister from that point to other people and give them hope. And you're certainly doing that. And I just want to encourage you. I just want to encourage you to keep doing it, Keith, even when it's tough. People need to hear your story, because your story is the key that unlocks pain for someone else. And I'm certain that there's a lot of people that are reading that book, hearing your story, hearing interviews like this and other things. And God bless you for doing it and for your willingness to step out in doing it.
Thank you. I just want to add one more thing, if I can.
Absolutely.
One scripture that I really leaned on when I was newly diagnosed. So all you newly diagnosed listeners out there, I leaned on Jeremiah 29:11. Mm-hmm. You know that one. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And so if you're struggling today while you're listening to this podcast, I want to encourage you to give a call to somebody. If you are not doing very well at all, call your doctor. Or if you're feeling suicidal, or you've got a lot of suicidal thinking going on, call the National Suicide Hotline number. It's on our website. Just go to freshhope.us. But also, I want to encourage you to think about finding a support group. For all the research shows that if you attend an ongoing mental health healthy support group, it actually is very effective. People get better sooner, they stay better longer. And when you incorporate faith, the research shows you get better, and you get better faster, and you stay better longer. So if you don't have a Fresh Hope group, for instance, there's Grace Alliance groups throughout the United States. But if you don't have one in your community, we have online groups that you can attend. And so you can go to freshhope.us, click on the right links, and it'll take you to show you how to become part of an online group. But in any case, I want you as a listener today to know that there is absolutely hope. Don't give up. And I think for all of us, and, I've been hospitalized for suicidal ideation and thinking and all of that. And Keith, you said you had a suicide attempt. I think for those of us who've been there, I just want to say, for me, suicide's not an option. It just would be passing my pain on to everybody else. And exactly. I want to encourage you to not consider that in the least. Take it off the table. It's just not an option. And but you don't have to live with the pain either. There is help, and there is hope, and there is healing. Thank you, Keith. Thank you very much for taking time out today to record this with me. And I'm looking forward to having you in Omaha on April 19th. And for those of you who are listening to this on demand, well, it's April 19th, 2018. So you might be hearing it in 2019 or whatever. But we're looking forward to it. We're hoping we'll be able to podcast it live for those around the country to hear your message and to hear your encouragement. Well, thank you so much, Keith. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Well, my friend, that's this edition of Fresh Hope for Mental Health. I hope it's been helpful to you. We'd really like to hear from you. Feel free to email us, Pastor Brad at freshhope.us. Questions, comments, input. Maybe you'd like to do an interview with us. And you can always leave a voicemail on our website also, on our podcast website, that is, freshhopeformentalhealth.com. You can connect with us on social media, et cetera, et cetera. And if you do me a favor and make a comment about this podcast if you're listening via iTunes, it just helps others find the podcast more easily. And like I said, we've got groups all over the United States and other countries, as well as online, and different types of groups. If you have a co-occurring issue where you have an addiction piece as well as a mental health piece, we also have a group online for that. So, my friend, until next time, may the Lord fill you with His hope, fresh and new daily. I'm Brad Hoefs, your host, and this has been another edition of Fresh Hope for Mental Health. Thank you, Keith.